All right, beautiful coaches, welcome to this workshop. So excited to have you here, and actually welcome to the Transformative Coaching Summit. It's the very first one, but hopefully it's going to be the annual thing going forward. So to kind of grab your attention straight away, I want to start by saying that the topic that we're going to be talking about today solves pretty much 80% of problems, sometimes even more, that can occur in coaching relationship. And what do I mean by problems? And by problems, I mean a situation where there seems to be a lack of clarity, or sometimes something feels a little bit off in a coaching relationship. Sometimes as coaches, we might feel like, is this client really committed to this work together? Are they showing up 100% for themselves and for this coaching and for this work that we're doing here? Sometimes there are misunderstandings that occur in coaching relationships. Sometimes there are hidden expectations. And very often, it kind of comes from our sensations and kind of like internal processing. I'm feeling like the client is expecting something from me. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure whether I actually want to give it. So these are the things that very often happen in coaching. Just want to normalize that. And contracting is often the solution to clarify, to clearing the air and moving on with coaching work and with the good stuff, as Alex said. Okay, so let me just start sharing my screen. Perfect. Can we all see that? The art of contracting? Yes, beautiful. So being able to contract and recontract masterfully around the three elements that we are going to be covering today will definitely elevate your coaching conversations. And it will actually help you feel more confident in your coaching. Confidence is the topic that comes up a lot in my supervision practice. As a lot of coaches describe how they perhaps not feeling very confident in their work, maybe when they're using certain interventions, whether they can actually take certain client cases. Can I really be helpful to this client? So contracting is something that actually really helps you with your own confidence and feeling at ease with your coaching. I'm so certain at that because I've been teaching contracting for 2 years now. I can pretty much guarantee that mastering that skill will help you elevate your coaching conversations. So what I want you to do right now, if that's okay, would you be able to actually drop in the chat whether it's your first workshop or the fifth one, the fifth event that you are attending? And how are you arriving right now? And just like really, really honestly, are you arriving feeling excited? Maybe a little bit unsure. Maybe you feel like, I don't know you. Whether is that going to be a waste of my time? And just like really honestly, what is on your minds at the moment? Emily says, I need to leave early. Would it be possible to get the recording? Yes, Emily, I'm recording. I'm hoping it will be shared on the YouTube channel later. This will be confirmed a little bit later. Okay. Can we please make sure that everyone's on mute? There is some background noise. Yeah, thank you for noticing that, Tracy, and letting us know. Intrigued and hopeful. Amazing. I like that combination, Katie. Feeling hopeful for new ideas around contracting. New ideas. Okay. So like pay attention to, I'm kind of know this already. I am doing this. And reflect, how could I do this differently? And like, what is the newness here? Curiosity and ease. Lovely. Ease is the vibe that is very close to my heart. I love this. Curious. Third of the day. Nice. Arriving with interest. Chose this one over to other interesting ones. I'm feeling honored. Thank you so much. By the way, I have a call I need to go to at 4 p.m. I'll revisit when I'm clear of such distractions. Make sure you ask questions before you have to go, Alex. I've been here this morning, so I'm a bit tired to tell you the truth. Love that. Love the truth. I actually like when there is a bit slight tiredness in our body. Like I'm feeling a little bit tired right now because I'm feeling a bit under the weather. I've just had 2 paracetamols, so I'm a little bit better. But feeling tired in my body actually allows me sometimes to do less effort in coaching and when I present in workshops like this. So maybe it's a good thing. Been here all day, and right now I'm really keen to attend this workshop as I'm at the start of my coaching journey. Congratulations, Tamsin. I'm so excited for you. The start can be sometimes nerve-wracking and feeling a bit weird, but it is very exciting. Curious, 4th workshop. Catherine, you're on a roll. Feeling hot, looking forward to discussing this topic, which makes me feel uncomfortable. Oh, I love that we're being so truthful with each other already. Contracting is an uncomfortable topic, and especially when we talk about the psychological element of it, this is where things can feel a little bit, can I say this? Can I mention this to my client? 2nd workshop today, feeling energized and hoping to get some contracting tips. Plenty of those are coming our way. I'm keen to understand more, also to be honest, weary and screen fried. At any moment, feel free just to close your eyes and kind of relax your shoulders and just listen and see what comes through. 4th session today, interested to learn more about contracting. Good. In info gathering mode. Love it. This is my default mode. 4 workshop, feeling enthusiastic, enthused, and a bit tired after the full day on screen. Guys, I'm so honored you're here. I really feel it. That it must feel quite tiring actually towards the end of the day. 3rd one, I'm feeling open. I love this. Open to receive. What are we receiving, Tina? Curious and keen to learn, wary of the disruption that is likely when my children arrive home. I'm a mom as well, totally get it. I have shipped my husband and children out of the house for this event though, but I totally hear you. Keen to show up because I recently didn't contract well and it messed up the end of the session, so learned the importance of contracting. Mary, I love that you're saying this, and the reason I'm fascinated by the contracting and how it all began for me and why I was so adamant to nail it for myself, first of all, is started with a really bad client case. I royally effed up, and the client has cancelled agreements because we just couldn't arrive at a compromise. Make it a bit more welcoming. This is the 3rd workshop. I have read Simplifying Coaching, great book by Claire Patrick. She says you should spend some time on contracting. Interested what you are going to say. Cool, we're going to cover 3 elements of contracting for sure. 3rd workshop today, Pooja. Hi, looking forward to the session, feeling curious and opening up to dive deep about how I contract. Brilliant. 3rd of the day, my goodness, guys, you are committed. Very interested in this seemingly unsexy part of coaching. The most unsexy word in the coaching industry is contracting. I find it so important and looking forward to learning more. Amazing. Hi, Helen. 1st of the day and feeling excited because I love all of our conversations around contracting in our supervision group and can't get enough. Beautiful. Thank you. One of the best ways to learn contracting is to actually observe a good contracting, be on the receiving end of it. As I can see, I'm not the only tired screen fried person. I'm going to turn off the camera to stretch a bit. I'll be back shortly, hopefully refreshed. Absolutely. Make sure you're comfortable, guys. Take a moment to connect to your body. All right. Thank you so much for sharing so honestly and truthfully, like how you arriving today. I'm going to make sure that I stay on time and give you as much as possible during our time together. So let's crack on. Here's the only thing that you need to know about me before we go into the juicy information about contracting. I'm Chris. I'm a proud Animus coach. And I say proud Animus coach because having familiarized myself with other coaching certifications, I actually realized that Animus goes so much deeper than it could have. And is just really psychologically based kind of education. So after qualifying with Animus, I have qualified as a coaching supervisor with the ICCS, which is Nick Bolton's school. I'm the kind of person who feels like a foreigner wherever I go. I'm a Londoner with Lithuanian DNA. I grew up in Russia. I'm also a wife and a mom, and I run my coaching practice online. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is that so many of you are probably running your coaching practice online as well. And there are certain things about contracting that we can actually do in our content to start building certain expectations around what would it look like to work with us. And the reason why this understanding is important and why I'm mentioning this is because it begins to create psychological safety between us and our clients. They almost enter the coaching relationship feeling like they know us, they know what to expect, they know what's going to happen. To an extent. If you're a little bit woo or spiritual like me, you're into human design, I'm a projector. If you're into astrology, I'm an Aquarius, mad scientist, innovative kind of person, romantic IFB, and a natural helper and healer, Enneagram type 2. Here's what we're going to cover today. This is my very ambitious aim for today. We'll make sure to cover as much as possible, but also sure that I can answer your questions. So your questions, guys, are not just welcome. They're massively encouraged. I'm at my best when I'm a resource and at service to other people. So if you're able to pull out of me and ask your questions, go for it. Drop them in the chat box. Some of them I might park until the very end or say, oh, this part is coming and this will answer your question. Some of them will be able to answer straight away. The main point is don't hold back. Feel free to ask any questions, especially if you have to leave early and you just kind of want to clarify something before you go. Here's what we're going to be focusing on today. What is contracting? Why is it actually important? What are the 3 core elements of effective contracting? And the reason why I think it's important for us to address those 3 elements is that very often coaches ask themselves those questions. Am I doing enough? Have I done something more or differently in order to establish a beautiful foundation of the relationship between me and the client so that we can build on top of this foundation? I'd really like to share a sessional contracting with you. It's a very kind of short, on point, informative, I would say inspiration. So those of you who are open to receive and learn something new, open to tips and knowledge, this is for you. The questions that you can implement in your very next session with your client and play with, and then reflect on them. How did it feel for me to be asking those questions? Did they influence the coaching session at all? I'd really love to share my personal framework with you if we have time left. And Q&A will be happening here or there. And if you'd like to have a session afterwards, just to sort of solidify something or reflect on something together with a supervisor, I do have a discount code for you for no strings attached, just one-off session if you want to. And I'm going to try and do my best, keeping an eye on the chat box as well. Beautiful projector here as well. Love to see that on the slide. Oh, thank you. Also projector, brilliant. What is it's a modality called human design. It's very similar to astrology. Afraid I'm struggling to hear you a bit, Chris. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that as you keep breaking up. Oh, okay, let me make sure I get my volume up. I did get a couple of kind of little notes on the screen saying that my Wi-Fi connection was unstable, but hopefully it will be nice and smooth going forward. Do let me know if it keeps breaking up badly. We'll try and do something about it, okay? Cool. So what is contracting really? And I've added some information on the slide, but essentially, like the most important thing that I want you to know is that oftentimes when we think about the word contracting, immediately we think about the paper agreement. But it's actually, it goes so much beyond. It's not just about the paper agreement. It's about the act of co-creation. We are co-creating the relationship with our clients, and the purpose of that co-creation is clarity and commitment. We're actually taking time to slow down rather than diving straight into, so for example, we're having the first session with our client and saying, what would you like to work on today straight away? And they say, I have this thing, for example, limiting belief, and we're like, cool, let's do the A to F straight away. Actually actually contracting is about slowing everything down to make sure that we understand where we're heading, this A to B kind of journey, not just for one session, not just for today, but like for the whole work together. Where is it that you want to be? And how clear are we? And how committed are you to that destination? Contracting is not about the paper at all, although there are things that you can add there just to simplify things a little bit. But it's about having that open and honest conversation. And we just explore one very important question. How are we going to work together so that you achieve your goal as a client, utilizing my competence as a coach? And a lot of it sounds simple, but a lot of it actually boils down to your self-understanding as a coach. What is your coaching? How do you work with your clients? So we think that we are learning contracting. Part of it is our deep inner work as well. How do you prefer working with your clients? Do you combine different modalities in your work? Perhaps you have a certain expertise that you contract around bringing into the coaching space. Maybe you're like Sheila, you have consultancy, and maybe you combine coaching with mentorship. How do you contract around the balance of both? And you can say, so here's my coaching, here's how I work. Would you welcome the mentorship element into our work together? And to what extent? And how will I understand as a coach that now is the good moment for us to do a bit of mentoring rather than coaching?
Can I ask you a question, Kristina?
Go ahead, Tamsin.
I'm getting the impression, but I could be wrong, that a lot of us are maybe still training or recently just qualified, that kind of thing. What if we still don't know because we're finding out, we're just starting our training, so we don't exactly know the modalities, or we're just learning to do the coaching thing?
Yeah, beautiful. You don't have to have 53 modalities in your coaching toolkit straight away. But as you develop as a coach, you evolve. And with time, there might be something extra that you are adding to your coaching toolkit, and you are gaining greater self-understanding. As you are in the beginning of your journey, there's no requirement for you to have great self-understanding straight away. You're still figuring things out. But there are certain things that you already know. You understand what coaching is in general, and you're mastering that. And through practice and coaching and reflective practice, as you reflect on your client cases, you begin to notice some patterns. You begin to notice what kind of clients you attract, what kind of clients feel like absolute pure joy to work with, what kind of challenges feel like, oh, this is so intellectually stimulating, or I love working with this kind of challenges. And as a coach, only then gradually you begin to understand that maybe I prefer working with neurodiverse women. Maybe I really like this particular topic that I kind of want to work more around. There's no requirement, there is no obligation for you just to understand that straight away from day one. No one does. It's absolutely fine. But as you reflect, something will emerge. And it would be interesting, like I would encourage you to ask yourself, how am I going to introduce this? Or perhaps mention this in my contracting. So that would probably be my suggestion here. Am I beginning at least to answer your question here, Tamsin?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll stop interrupting now. Thank you.
Cool. You can always go back to basics with the coaching, what coaching is and isn't. And that would be the safe haven and a good place for all of us. So why is contracting important? And the reason why I'm adding this is that I'm hoping this will answer the question, why would I spend my time here? Why would I, was it almost 4 o'clock? Why would I spend my time here rather than go and having an early pint if you are in UK? So here's why. Very often contracting is the solution to this kind of problems. It balances the responsibility over the desired outcome between the two parties. And here's the thing about coaching. Sometimes as coaches, we feel like, am I doing enough? Or I feel like I'm doing so much in the coaching space with my clients and nothing is happening. So when it comes to responsibility over the desired outcome between the two parties, contracting is often the solution to any kind of worries or concerns that come up in relation to this. But also about boundaries. What is happening in our relationship? What are we here to do and what are we here not to do? It creates respect as well. It helps prevent, here's the big one, and that's essentially what happens with my clients. You know, that good old case when I royally effed up. It helps prevent clients' unvoiced or untimely voiced dissatisfaction or bitterness about the results. And by the way, guys, if you feel like, you know, I'm going through slides a little bit too quick and you really want to write down something, don't worry about it. I'll share the slides with you later and I'll let you know how you can do that. You can always get in touch with me via Instagram or LinkedIn. I'll leave my contact information at the very end. It also really helps with overassuming and under-delivering, because our clients often, well, not often, sometimes they worked with somebody else before us. Maybe they worked with a therapist, maybe they worked with a counselor. They are approaching our work, working with us with some level of expectations, whether they realize it or not. So our job is to uncover that and actually bring them to the surface and understand that. So this is some of the common trends. So if this is something that not like you're afraid of or you're concerned might occur in coaching, contracting is the solution. I could not quote Nick here because this is something, and actually that brings me to the point that we discussed in the very beginning of our call. We're not really taught contracting from day one in our coaching training, and this is something that actually I found really curious as well. I learned contracting in my supervision diploma, and I absolutely loved that module. It answered so many questions for me. There's a good reason for this as well. Contracting kind of evolves and emerges through reflection, and not necessarily with supervisors straight away, although it is the best practice for success, but also when you reflect by yourself after every single session. What went really well? What felt natural? What could have I done differently? The thing that Nick said is that almost every problem has its roots in contracting. And if we kind of can wind back, we can find that place of growth. So reflecting on the contracting bit can be a beautiful learning opportunity for us all. Okay, so we're coming to this 3 elements. And 3 elements, the reason why I'm adding them, I think it's so important, simply because it answers that question. How can I create clarity around those 3 elements to make sure that my contracting process is solid? How am I creating clarity around those 3 elements? Here they are, and they were identified by Eric Berne, my favorite Eric Berne, the founder of transactional analysis: the administrative, the professional, and the psychological. Have you ever heard of those elements before?
Might have done. We did do transaction analysis, but I don't remember this bit.
Yeah, well, it wasn't part of the course when I was studying Atmos. No, good. So hopefully that will be the newness here. So some of you said some of this, which awesome. I think the psychological contracting is something that is more common. No, okay, good. I'm excited. So this is going to be the newness in our workshop. So I'd like to sort of have a discussion here with you. When you hear the word the administrative contract, what comes up? What do you think is important to cover when it comes to the admin bit of the coaching agreement and the coaching work with our clients? What do you think is important here? And like when we hear the word administrative, how do you even feel about the word administrative?
Not very sexy.
At all. Boring, I would say. Like my association is boring. Practical, very good. Cost, timing, frequency. Alison, amazing. Time, how often, cost, fantastic. Yes. Roles, partially. Yeah. What else might be there? Frequency of meeting, invoicing, very good. Yes, yeah. Cancellation, fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Boundaries, responsibilities. Confidentiality, a biggie. I love the admin bit. Ooh, Anna, you love the admin bit. Amazing. It is the foundation to clarity of procedure. Spot on. And I'll speak to that point in a bit. Time, day, good. Yes. I'll quickly check my notes as well, just to make sure that I cover everything I want in this bit as well. Safeguarding. Yeah. Where and when and how we're going to meet. Do you have specific coaching days? Ways of communication in between session, if any? True. Yeah. What's the best way? What's the preferred channel? Is it Instagram? Is it Voxer? Is it Telegram? There are so many options these days. An unexpected topic from the client's perspective. Privacy and confidentiality. Yes. The administrative bit is the most straightforward and the most fundamental part of contracting, and yet it is often overlooked. Privacy and confidentiality. And the reason why it's often overlooked is because as coaches, and I wonder if you guys resonate with it readily, or maybe you just give it a moment and think, yeah, actually I do resonate with that. When we hear yes from a new client, we get so excited. We can't wait to start working with them. And we just want to jump right in. And we just want to tell me where you're at right now. Where do you want to be? And how are we going to bridge the gap together? How can I be with you? And how can I support you during that journey? But one of you have mentioned a very important part. Administrative contract allows to create a sense of security. And yes, this part can be very practical, pragmatic, kind of boring at times. But clarity is around administrative part of contracting, not only essential for the world of business. And if any of you are business coaches or you work with business-minded people, it's important for us to model this kind of skill. It also creates a safe space within which we allow the unknown to emerge. So I wonder if you guys heard of safe uncertainty element in coaching. When we build and establish that foundation, then we feel a little bit safer and we're like, oh, I know what to do if something happens. So let's go to the specifics. So many of you were right. It's a structure frequency of sessions, and I will share those slides with you. Don't worry, they are yours. When are we going to meet? How many sessions we contract around? And the frequency of those sessions, and how long are they? Sometimes our clients used to work with therapists before, and therapy sessions are 50 minutes. They might not be used to blocking an hour and a half if you're doing deep dives. Is there a deadline to use the rest of the sessions? And what if one of us needs to reschedule a session? Here's something that sometimes occurs in a coaching practice. Client doesn't know how to reschedule a session, but all of a sudden they're not feeling well. So they show up, but they don't really want to be there. We as coaches don't know that actually they didn't feel well. They just didn't know how to reschedule a session. And we take it personally. We think we did something wrong and the client didn't seem to be as engaged in the coaching session. So just to prevent that, it would be good to discuss how are we going to reschedule a session. And yes, this is something you can actually add into your paper agreement. But it's good practice to mention it as well during your first call or discovery call if you do them. And say, hey, if you ever need to reschedule, just let me know. Financial side, are the fees paid up front? Is it going to be session by session or a payment plan? And if there is a payment plan, how are you going to share the schedule? What the schedule is going to look like? And also systemic issues. Most of our coaching happens online at the moment. I very, very rarely see my clients face to face. What are we going to do if the network goes down in the middle of a session? Do we have an agreement to go straight on the phone, or who calls home? And what is the preferred messenger for the communication in between? And one of them mentioned it. So what does the client prefer? And maybe you have a preferred messenger that you say that this is going to be the best way for us to communicate. How do you feel about that? So this is the administrative contract. And before we move on, I just want to quickly check in with you. Do you have any questions whatsoever? It's the most straightforward part. Part of me feels like ready to move on to the professional contract, which is juicier. Just want to make sure that I see if there are any questions and I cover them. I see raised hand. Is it Tina? Sorry
yes,
if I
hi. Yeah, no worries. It's perfect. It's Tina. Yeah.
Cool.
Are these the only three things you would say that are imperative to be in the sort of the paperwork side of the contract, or would there be anything else that would fall into here that's important?
Good question. Well, to be honest, all of it or none of it can be in your paper agreement, and that depends on how much flexibility you allow in your coaching programs. It might be sometimes that you have a really set way of working with your clients, and sometimes you say, hey, let's just meet for a discovery call and see what would work for you and for your specific goal, for your specific pace, maybe your specific circumstances. In my contract, personally, what I do, I make sure that I just let clients know what my coaching days are. I say I don't coach on the weekends. I hope that's okay with you. I don't really do the evenings as well. I'm in the UK so that they know the time zone. I would recommend this many sessions. So these are the things that I'm covering in a conversation. How long a session is in the paper agreement. And whether there is a deadline. Usually I don't introduce the deadline to use the rest of the sessions, but if there is the suggested time frame to use up coaching sessions, I put that in the paper agreement as well. And cancellation policy and rescheduling policy is always there, because this is the kind of thing that I don't want a client to keep front of their mind. They can always refer back to the agreement if they need to reschedule, or just quickly ask me if they want to.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you for your question. Okay, I feel like we're ready to move on to the professional one. The professional contract. So some of the things that a couple of you mentioned are actually fallen into the professional part of the contract. So once the administrative part is done, it's the most straightforward part, but it's very crucial and fundamental because it creates that certainty. What do we feel needs to happen in the professional contract? What would be part of it?
Is this different from the paper contract? I'm a bit confused. You've got your admin, which presumably may be an email. Is this part of that attached to it? Is it a separate thing altogether?
Those are the elements of contracting process. So some of it can be in your paper agreement, like the admin bits that we just talked about. Not all of them have to be there, to be honest. Some of them can be sent via email and just say, dear client, here are just like a few admin bits just to make sure that they're here in writing so that you can refer back to if you need to understand them better or just revisit. But good contracting covers all three elements: administrative, professional, and psychological. And it's just some of them will be in paper agreement, will be in writing in the email, for example, and some will be part of the conversation that you have with your clients in the very beginning of your coaching conversation and then during recontracting phases.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Confidentiality. Yes. Code of ethics. Following the code of ethics. Following the code of ethics. Yeah. Address the silence during the session. Interesting. Yeah. Relationship. Yes. One of you mentioned in the admin contract bits, the roles, the professional roles. What is my job here as a coach? And what is your job here as a client? Partnering, and I don't have the answers. Power and partnership, juicy, potent, deep, incredibly important topic. Part of it partially overlaps with psychological as well. What coaching is and isn't. Spot on, Katie. How will we measure progress? Love it. Yes, absolutely. And by the way, not all coaches are going to use that. For some coaching, like especially pure life coaching, measure is a difficult word sometimes to understand for clients when it comes to inner shifts. But the question, how will we understand that you are progressing well or you're getting what you want to get out of this work together? It's definitely going to be there. Good stuff. We're ready to uncover the information about professional contract? Let's go. Here's some of the most important things. But actually, before we just go there, I have a suggestion for you how to even start the conversation around the professional contract, what that's going to look like. Because when you're in the workshop, that's all, or you have a slides, my understanding that it's all kind of easy. But when you're in a conversation with a client, how do you actually start a conversation around it? When you have a client in front of you, how do you tell them, well, let's do the professional contract right now, or something like this? It's certainly a way, but it might not be the most interesting way. Can coaching philosophy be part of this? Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And actually, your self-understanding and certain things that you realize about yourself, how you prefer working with your clients as a coach will be part of it. Your philosophy, your approach. And I'll give you a few tips here. And by the way, guys, if you have questions around how do I describe my style, can I say this to my clients? Feel free to ask them. So here's how I would suggest starting a conversation around it. When you have a discovery call or the very first session with your client, have you been coached before? And what was that experience like? Maybe the client never been coached before, but they've been in therapy. And then you can explain how therapy is different from coaching so that they begin to develop certain expectations. Whether they worked or didn't work with a coach, another good question to ask straight after that, what worked well for you in that relationship or in that experience? And what didn't quite work for you? Is the client willing to share? I remember I started working with a life coaching client in February last year, and she was an incredible client. And most of our first session, we only had 4 sessions together, so it was quite a short coaching package, but it was enough for her at the time. And I was mindful that we only have 4 sessions. I really want to make sure that it's impactful for my clients. We all have this kind of cool. No worries, Alex. Thank you so much for letting me know. Thank you for your energy and being here. I spent the most of our first session figuring out what was her previous experience, what worked and what didn't work. And then I linked it back to professional contract and psychological one that we're going to cover soon here as well. And it was important because it kind of gave me a bit of an understanding of my client. And also, sometimes when you ask those questions, you can uncover something unresolved. Sometimes clients comes with a bit of a resentment from the previous coaching relationship or working with other practitioners. And we kind of want to make sure that they don't kind of unintentionally carry this energy into the new relationship. And once we're aware that perhaps mentorship didn't work for our clients, or one of my clients once said, I felt like I was at school and I was taught what to do. Well, tell me more about that. What did that sound like? And hypothetically, what would needs to happen in a space? What would I have to say or voice for you to feel like that again? because I don't want you to feel like this. If it's not useful to you, why would we go there? I'm giving you this suggestion. Have you been coached before? What worked and what didn't? Because it's rooted in the idea that it's in the difference that we understand the meaning of something, not the definition. When the client has the previous experience, great, we can, and I think it's juicy if we use it. Explaining the coaching conceptually can be useful, but when we can compare it to something, it adds the new layer, deeper layer. I actually heard a coach describe sometimes once they're coaching. They said, I'm a coach. What does it mean? It was basically like therapy, but we don't dig, for the sake of digging. We focus on you right here, right now, and we actually create an intentional effort for you to live the life that you're in love with rather than the life that you kind of tolerate in. I'm not here to dig in the past for no reason whatsoever or prescribe you any medicaments. That's not what I do. But we're here to have deep and meaningful conversations to understand where you're at, where do you want to be, and how we're going to bridge that gap. And I'm going to make sure that the commitment is there and you begin to transform your life. No word about coaching.
Is that actually what you say, Kristina?
Pardon?
Is that what you say?
Sometimes, depending on the context. It depends what kind of client is in front of me. Obviously, if I'm in a supervision program, I work with other coaches, so they probably don't need that kind of explanation. But when there's a potential client with me, or I'm just at a networking event and there are essentially non-coaches in front of me, I might use that, depending on the context, and just see what happens. There is no kind of like one formula. See what belongs, see what comes up. I also like to ask how your ideal coach would be and what tips would you give to your coach to manage you effectively in this process. I love that. And you know what? That takes courage to hear that as well. It takes courage to ask and hear the answer around this. And tells you, okay, so that tells me that if I do this, that would be effective for you. Am I hearing it right? And you can always sort of check in with your client around this. Catherine, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. I have a question on that one. I do agree, it does take courage. When I read that comment, I was a bit like, ooh, I would never do that. But then, because I guess my question's around, what if the client says something and you're like, well, I'm not going to do that because this is not my style, or because I believe it's not coaching, whatever the reason is. Like, how do you come back from that? Because you're basically saying, well, I'm not going to be the coach you want. I don't know. Yeah, I'm wondering about what your thoughts or anyone else's thoughts are on this.
I don't know if I may answer because I put that comment there. Because I used to ask this question and I am still asking. I had a coaching process. It just started today morning and I literally asked this question. And I asked it in the first part. So I start with designing our alliance and relationship. And I ask it purposefully to understand how could I help, but also to create the partnership. So if it's not my style, I'm going to communicate it and we agree what we can expect from each other. But it also helps a lot sometimes because, and most of the time, I'm really grateful for the trust that I get because I got to know how can I recognize if they are falling sideways or what are the tricks that they are already knowing about themselves that they use it as an excuse not to reach whatever goal they want. So most of the time it's really useful. And to be honest, I've never encountered something that I said that, no, it's not going to be. It's most of the time really helpful. But there is the option to say that, okay, maybe it's not what I'm going to do, but I can use it as continuing the conversation to designing that alliance that would be based on trust and strong connection. So that's my practice. I'm really curious to hear others about that.
Thanks for sharing.
I love that. This is essentially intervision happening right now when peer coaches get together, discuss client cases and situations, and share their experience. That's intervision, which is really useful for reflective practice as well. Here's what comes for me. You absolutely can say authentically, like when you know, and it's true to you, that, to be honest, I'm not that kind of coach who does that. I'm not the kind of coach who's going to tell you, here's what I think you should do. Because I don't have the expertise in this specific topic, for example. But I'm going to be here to help you elicit the answers from within. You absolutely have the right to say that. Another way that you can approach this from is to say, interesting, could you tell me a little bit more? Do you think this is something that needs to occur in our work together? Why do you believe you need me to tell you this or share advice or whatever it is the client desires that you're not quite willing to provide, or you just know it's just not the shape of your heart, doesn't quite sit well with you? So you can essentially coach them around that. Tell me a little bit more. Why do you believe you need that? Or why do you believe that would be useful for you or effective for our work together? Then you, if you want, you can follow up with, to be completely honest with you, just so that you understand my approach, it's not really how I work. Well, and instead of this, here's what I do. And it tends to create this kind of shift that you partially desire in terms of like the destination that you wanna arrive at. What else I wanted to say here? Where else can you get it? And if, for example, if we decide to continue our work together, knowing that I'm not quite the coach, I'm not quite, for example, emergency coach, you know, there has to be 24-hour notice at the very least, or you book a week in advance our session. I'm not the emergency kind of coach. I want you to be able to be self-reliant and actually, you know, take time to think about something and reflect on something, because this is how we learn. We don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. This is why we need a coach, or coaches need supervision, so that we create this reflection on action. I just want to check in with you, Catherine, here. Does this give you a bit of inspiration?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I think, yeah, what I'm thinking is basically, so I do a bit of contracting in my discovery calls. You know, when we're talking about some of these topics, I'm like, yeah, I do that in discovery calls. And I don't touch on them again at the first session, because in my mind, I'm a bit like, well, this has been covered. And this kind of question, I would be scared of asking it in a discovery call, because that might make the client think, oh, I don't want to work with her then. And that's kind of where, you know, in the sales exercise, I'd be, yeah, afraid really of asking that question. However, what I'm thinking right now is that I'm going to be splitting my contracting in two. There's going to be bits in the discovery call, because I think almost all the elements of the professional contract I talk about in my discovery call. So before I start working with someone.
Nice.
But then there might be elements that I bring again after, when they've booked in and they've signed up to work with me. And I think that's one question I feel more confident sharing in the first session. So that they're, in a way, I don't know, it feels a bit weird saying it, but they're hooked in already. I mean, they can obviously go away, but they're kind of already working with me. They've committed to that. And then it's just making our relationship better. So I guess that's why I was feeling uncomfortable about this question. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. And if, as a result of this workshop, you start doing something differently in how you position those contracting questions, that it's music to my ears, rather than just going and do everything habitually.
Definitely. I'll be taking things away.
And it's always a wise move to start contracting process on a discovery call, whether the client decides to work with you or not. I was asked this question when I started therapy. Thanks for sharing this, Fiona. We'll cover it. We kind of like overlapping with psychological contracting here, which is all about this deep, juicy, subversive kind of things that are unspoken, unwritten, but you can feel it there. And honesty is an important factor, 100% during the contracting process. It may well be not a suitable match. You have to be honest with potential client. Absolutely. And clients respect that when you say, hey, this is as much as for you as it is for me, just to understand that I'm the right practitioner for you. And that way the client sometimes just, you can see that kind of like relax a little bit. You're not there to sell them something. You're there to understand, is this going to be a lovely relationship for both of us? Are we going to do some cool work together? Or do we need a little bit more time to think about it? Which is all valid concerns. Let me quickly check the time. Okay, so my suggestion here is to go to the experience that the client has. And then you can build what coaching is in general. Coaching is a distinct model. It's different from mentoring, consultancy. And what is your coaching? And again, coming back to Tamsin's questions, you don't have to know straight away or have like some specific approach, modality, uniqueness, something to stand out from the traditional coaching, but it will inevitably emerge through practice and through reflection. And it's really important to say what coaching absolutely isn't. I'm not here to tell you what to do. And if at some point you would like me to, I would just get really curious about it. Is there perhaps a habit of yours to ask for other people's opinions on what they think you should do before you make a decision to do something about your, something in your life? And just approach this with presence and curiosity. And by the way, when I'm saying presence and curiosity, something that's these are like lofty coachy words that kind of make sense, but also what does that sound like? When you're curious with your clients, you follow your own curiosity, your own, it's kind of informed by your own coaching experience or maybe your life experience. Oh, I'm wondering what happened there that drove those kind of feelings or actions. Presence is different. When it comes to presence, your curiosity doesn't lead the way, but it can certainly open the interesting door for yourself and for your client. When you hold presence for your client, they lead you. They open the door. It's not like one is better than the other. Both are equally important, and it's just get curious, like which one you use more than the other. And I think a really cool exercise that it's going to be something that you reflect regularly all the time. What is my go-to definition of coaching? That sort of like rolls off my tongue, perhaps a metaphor. Here's something that I found when I started studying contracting, and it kind of amazed me that it came from 1977. That there is considerable evidence to suggest that failed or discontinued work is largely caused by an addressed difference in expectations between practitioner and client. That obviously hit the spot for me because, again, my motivation to start this work and really feel fascinated about it, to make sure that I master it and I understand it deeply, was off the back of that client case where I failed my client essentially. And again, this is something that no coach wants to experience. Have that, I failed my client, I should have done better. But sometimes it happens. And it's not like avoiding that, because when we're avoiding, we're not showing up fully. But it's about learning from the experience. Here are some of the examples, something that we've already mentioned. You absolutely have permission to say, I'm not here to give you advice or opinions. This is not what I'm here to do. Unless you are also consultant or mentor. Maybe you're using coaching and mentorship in your work with your clients, and then you just contract around the balance. And a good way to do this in the session, for example, so you've contracted around this, that I'm going to do both. Is that okay with you, my dear client? Perfect. And when you start working together in session 3 or 4, a really good way is to, when a client brings a case and says, this is something that I want to work on, you can say, cool, how can I support you with this? Would you like me to elicit the answers from within and help you create more clarity around this so that you understand it better, and what would be your unique way of addressing this? Or would you like me to perhaps share experience or guidance or expertise here, what would you welcome? What would be useful for you? And why do you think that would be useful for you? What kind of need would this fulfill? And you just sort of contract around it, and you lead the client, and you allow the client to lead the way and tell you how they want to be supported. You have all answers within. I'm here to help you discover them. And sometimes it's really difficult to say it like straight away and say, I have no doubt you have all answers within. You don't need some external roadmap or anything. How about we spend time, effort, and energy finding out your own unique roadmap? Sometimes there is a bit of a dilemma. So if we are positioning that, you know, in coaching, you're okay as you are, I'm okay as I am as a practitioner, why would clients even work with us? Our clients don't need fixing. We know that. The coaching mantra, you don't need fixing, you're already whole, resourceful, and creative enough. So the way you can word it is that you're already okay. You know, you're dealing with the circumstances at best you can with the level of awareness that you have right now. You just simply might not be living effectively in some parts of your life, and that's okay. And this is why you're here. I'm not the expert of your life, and neither should I be. That's a recipe for codependent relationship. I want you to trust yourself and feel like an expert in your life. Here's what I'm here to do. I'm here to hold space for you, offer observations, help elicit the answers from within so that you begin to transform your life. So again, this is just like some of the suggestions, something that the wording that you can implement straight away, and then reflect, how did it feel saying those things? What would be my own interpretation of that? How I want to word them going forward. Sheila says, it can also be a lack of commitment by the client. It can be. Sometimes clients begin, so some coaches have challenging relationship, complex relationship with the word self-sabotage. So self-sabotage, I'm going to use it interchangeably with it completely escaped me. But there is an alternative word to it. So preserving the current reality that is comfortable. And yeah, sometimes clients just feel like, am I really ready for the change? We'll cover this in psychological contract. Here are the questions I really want you to have as well, and this is why I included them. The main ones that I want to pinpoint and just sort of, you know, mention out loud. When the client responds and says, here's how I want you to be with me. I want you to be honest. I want you to say this. Always feel free that you can say, and what do you mean by saying that? Can you tell me a bit more? How are we going to work together? And how would you like to tell me or show me that you are getting, you know, you're getting something valuable out of our work together? How will you let me know that something isn't happening? And what would you like to bring into the space to ensure that we are on track, that we are progressing well? But like quite a few exclamation marks here, because it's a big one. It's an important one. And basically something that I've already talked about. Inquire, what's your client's experience of coaching? So that's the professional contract. Okay, before we move on to the psychological one, just want to check in with you guys. How are you feeling about the professional contract?
Kristina?
Yes.
Sorry, I just had my hand up. I just want to add a couple of things I just wanted to ask. One of the things, I mean, I'm very early in my journey with this, but I do consultancy, and I'm adding coaching to it now.
Nice.
So one of them is doing that. It's incorporating integrating both of those together. So some of it will be offering my viewpoints in in an executive role, etc., like that, in the way you've talked about it. But one of the things that I'm slightly challenged with, and this is just my early journey, is the language that's used. In terms of, you know, the you know, using words like I'm being present and being curious, you know, I think there's a from my own perspective, that kind of it's a rhetoric that exists, and sometimes people think, oh, what do you mean by that, being present and being curious? So the use of language, I think, is so powerful, and it can be very off-putting for some clients.
So what would be your question here?
So the question would be, in terms of positioning that, you know, when you said coaching, tell me what you want to do, and if so, I will explore this with you. Instead of giving you the answers, I'll be present and curious with you. And that's a lot of the language that the coaches, you know, and in our training, a lot of people use that.
It's a coach talk,
it's coach spiel. And I just wonder how, you know, do many people react to that? My question is, do people react to that language in your experience?
Some people do, certainly, and some people kind of listen and like, okay, never kind of had that quality of conversation before. That happens actually more often, because coaching is all about the quality of conversation. That, you know, they're like, wow, you're really interested about me. You're not telling me what to do straight away, like my friends do, or my family does. You actually keep asking me questions. Why is this important to me? And what would that create? And all of a sudden we start talking about values and priorities and needs. And clients can feel sometimes amazed by the quality of attention that they're getting. So presence can, so I alter my language. You're actually speaking to a very important point here. So I'm both coach and supervisor. And when I qualified as a supervisor, one of the things that, you know, fellow coaches asked me, well, will you ditch your coaching practice, or, you know, will you remain? And I very much want to stay in the game as a coach as well, so that I don't lose, like, that I stay in touch with my clients who are non-coaches, essentially. And here's the thing. Instead of presence, I often say attention. I'm here for you. Like, I'm not here to tell you what to do or like share my opinions or what I think you should be doing. I'm genuinely interested. Instead of curious, you can say interested. I'm genuinely interested about the motivation. Why is it that you want, you know, this, or perhaps helping you understand yourself better, so that you can actually feel at peace internally when you're making decisions or something. I do alter my language, and it is important to, and something that helps me to kind of gauge that my client might not be sort of on the same wavelength with me when I'm using some coachy words, and intentionally, I'm just checking in. Is this landing? Does this make sense? And sometimes clients say, not really. I'm like, great. I'm so grateful you're telling me about this, because I just want to make sure that we speak the same language, and, you know, I'm on the same level with you. And it's important just to stay attuned to it. Yeah, like when you're in a conversation with some clients, they'll be like, yeah, curiosity, presence, fine. And with some, it will be a little bit alien to them. It's like you're speaking French to them all of a sudden.
Yeah.
What does that create for you? How does that sort of feedback feels for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that, you know, it isn't one size fits all, and using words, even the word client can, you know, for some people might feel very cold or very transactional. So I suppose it is just being really mindful that everybody is unique and how you approach that. I think when you're going in first, it's trying to get it right, for want of a better word. The risk is that you go in with the rhetoric. Excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, throat chakra.
Yes.
Yeah, like exploring the language that we can use, and with our clients, and actually expanding that language as well. And it all starts with awareness that not all clients are going to understand the words that we understand, because they never done the coaching qualification like us. It just doesn't make any sense to them. Some clients will be interested about some words. Some clients will just not get them at all. And it's about checking in and saying, how's this landing with you? How can we create more transparency and like be on the same page? And then the third thing, us as coaches, continue developing that language that we're going to be using with different clients, so that we kind of have something developed already. It's like, oh, all right, you know, if presence doesn't feel like the right word, how would client react if I say attention, for example, and see what happens. Cool.
Thanks, Kristina.
No worries. Happy to. I love questions. I'm just going to quickly check the chat. I'm so mindful of time, guys. I wish we had 2 hours. Loving the examples. Yes, I love I love bringing life to, you know, the information. Otherwise, it's just can get a little bit boring. The term client can be off-putting for some clients too. Me too. So I am actually, I'm not getting a lot of work from them, just to be like completely transparent, but I'm a contractor coach for a startup, and they use the word member. So if people sign up for the coaching programs, they're not called clients, or God forbid patients as in therapy. They're called members of the program. So if client feels a little bit off-putting, you can recreate the language and say, these are, you know, the members of my program. Be careful not to use too much coach speak. Yep. Clients may not know what you're talking about. Absolutely. And then like, I mean, spot on. And then you're just like, am I making sense to you right now? and just having like this kind of, hopefully some lightness and ease in a conversation with your client. So you're not afraid to say this. And it's like, at some point I might not be able, like I might not make sense to you, or some words might not make sense to you, but it's okay as long as we can have a conversation around it. I teach my clients to be present. Amazing. And mindfulness coaching, mindfulness techniques is all about this. And as they are going deeper into this work of, you know, being mindful and making mindful decisions, they get way more familiar with the word present. Do you have a template that you adapt for each client? Can you share? Ooh. To be honest, these slides, this is my template. I go back to them. I created them 2.5 years ago now, I think. Sorry, 1.5 years ago. And I just go back to these questions. And the question that what I inquire with myself is, how am I creating clarity around those 3 elements? Admin, professional, and psychological. 10 minutes, and I really, really want to dive into psychological contract because it's the juiciest part of this training. And then the sessional contracting is super easy. You actually don't really need me just to play with that framework. You'll get it in the slides. Just get in touch with me, whether on Instagram or LinkedIn. Or if you can't find me, just I'm sure if you get in touch with someone at Animus, they'll let you know how to find me. Psychological contract is basically everything that kind of feels it's here. It's not in a paper. It's not in a conversation. It feels here, and we want to bring it, put it on the table, and kind of talk about it. And the main concern here is, how do we make sure that if one of us is finding the relationship challenging, then we feel like we have a space to be able to share that. That takes a lot of courage to ask that question, and it's an important question. I offer it on the very first session, normally, all the time, unless there is something that emerged during the discovery call that I feel like, okay, now is the good time for us to talk about the psychological contracting. So for example, the client comes to me on a discovery call and say, I really want to work on this. I was wondering, maybe, you know, you could help me. I worked with a coach before and something felt off. I'm like, cool, we're going straight there. What felt off? What created that offness? What is the definition of, you know, of that offness for you? And how I might unintentionally create that as well in our relationship, unintentionally. The reason I'm using this language is I'm kind of allowing the humanness in this space, because coaching, it all boils down to relationship between 2 people. And it's the quality of relationship that often determines how great the outcome of our work is going to be. So trust, rapport, honesty. So how do we make sure that if one of us is finding the relationship challenging, or we're using the language that the client brought, if the client said this didn't work, okay, so if one of us is finding that something isn't working, how do we make sure that we are able to share that? If one of us is noticing that you might be sabotaging your progress, or something's changing, how are we going to be able to offer it and take it in a depersonalized way and just have a very honest, genuine conversation around it? How comfortable are we to ask questions like this? And you know what would allow us to actually be able to ask questions like this is allowing the possibility that, yes, this relationship might not work out. Yes, this relationship might feel challenging at some point. We open the door to this. I was recently contracting with one of my clients, and the theme of not asking for help came up. And I'm like, okay, so part of our contract is remote support. And if I notice that you are not quite asking for my help in between the sessions, how would you like me to offer that to you? And she's like, oh, interesting. She's like, you can just tell me as it is, you know, now that you kind of opened the door, that, you know, if you ask me, I know that we contracted around it. But I would really like you to be compassionate about it with me, because my previous experience was that I almost felt kind of judged for not using something. I was like, okay, so what would I need to say, or how would I need to be to come across judgmental? So what are the words? Because I never assume that I understand what judgmental sounds like to my client. I can never know. But I can inquire about it and say, can you tell me what judgment it sounds like to you? What would I need to tell you? Or how would I need to show up in order to come across as judgmental? Oops. Some of the questions that you can start playing with straight away, and again, implement in your coaching practice. It feels like, you know, we're not quite progressing in the coaching relationship. How would you like us to address that? What would we do if things start feeling a bit difficult between us? And here's the best question, and I really want you to start asking it. That sounds very directive. I want you to play with it. What do you need from me as your coach to bring the best out in you? What normally brings out the best out in you? And here's something that we mentioned already. So if I notice that you might be self-sabotaging, because that kind of like been part of your experience before, or like you mentioned it, how would you like me to share that feedback with you? Do you actually want me to share that observations with you? You can always just check in. So just that we receive the clear yes. How challenging do you want me to be? The balance between the challenge and compassion. How much support do you want versus how much challenge? That creates those boundaries, client's psychological safety. Now, personally, I prefer the word foundation rather than boundaries. Boundaries, and that's just my personal thing. Actually, it might not feel that way to you. For me personally, boundaries is like we're closing ourselves from something. I tend to use the word foundation. Like this is the foundation, the solid one that we're building on top of. And so we're taking time to build solid foundation, so that whatever we build on top is really strong. There's a question about a template. Maybe Animus Lounge would be also a good place just to get the direct link. Because I'm actually not sure about that template either. All right, my loves, 3 more minutes left. I'm terribly sorry that I haven't finished everything on time, but I finished the most important part. This is just a quote: psychological contracts are at best empathic and respectful connections and the core of the essential working alliance in which we just create that trust so that the client feels open enough and safe to share their concerns. And here you will find sessional contracting when you receive the slides. These are the questions that you can just take on board straight away when you start a session with your client. What do we need to think about today? Given that we have that many minutes, what about that do we need to focus on? And what would you like to be different by the end of our time? Okay, and how will you know that you have got what you need out of this time together? How are we going to do this? That's actually great if you are balancing mentorship consultancy with coaching or different modalities. How are we going to do this? Are we going to create some clarity first or discuss something? Let me know. Where shall we start? And here's the really cool quote. There we go. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions, said by Albert Einstein. And that clearly speaks to contracting. Oh, Shayla, thank you so much for sending the document. Fabulous. We've got 1 minute left. Any final thoughts or quick questions? I am terribly sorry for not having more time with you, but it is what it is. You can find me online on LinkedIn or Instagram. My username is Become the Author of Your Life. So if you want any quick follow-up questions, just do let me know and I'll answer them for you. How are we feeling? Was there newness, tips, inspiration? Resourceful, nice, beautiful, helpful, and dare I say inspiring. Yeah, contracting is inspiring. Thank you, Tamsin. Much appreciated. Cool. Reference Claire Patrick's work. Yeah. Formative and educative. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Thank you. Fantastic. Like I said, amazing. Very good. Feel free to go on your break in 10 minutes. I believe there is going to be a lecture by Yannick. So if you need to top up your cuppa, use the bathroom before the session starts. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. It's been lovely. Okay, cool stuff. Bye for now.
Thanks so much,
Chris.
Thank you, Kristina. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much for being here. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye, Marlon. Bye, Jill. Ooh, how can I stop?
Kristina, have you stopped the recording?
Yeah, I'm doing it now. I'm just literally lost the button. Okay, stop recording.